Well, if you read what Governor has been saying, it's very clearly RBI is worried about some of the exuberance they're seeing on the credit growth side, especially on the retail loans and specifically on the unsecured loans. I think by increasing the risk weightages, they're giving a clear signal that they do want the market to temper down their growth, to watch for credit risks out there, which maybe they're not watching as closely, and also look at the leverage of some of the borrowers who are being lent money, especially by some of the smaller players in the system, including fintechs. I think the message goes on further to say that we are watching this space. It's not ended here. If we do not see this trend being reversed, we will do something more. What that more would be, RBI has many tools, and what they decide to do will only time will tell. At some stage, the deposit growth and the credit growth has to converge. The deposit growth is muted because RBI is tightening the liquidity. That is not going to go away till inflation is, comes under control. So if RBI is not going to give up on tightening our liquidity and deposit growth is not going to pick up to the extent we want, the credit growth at some stage has to come down. And they have to converge. It can't be too, credit growth just running ahead of deposit growth. So in that sense, I think they're just saying it openly and clearly that this is what they want the market to, how to behave. I think they have also started asking questions on the credit deposit ratio side. Now, every bank has its own context and what their deposit franchise is. For example, in case of Axis, we worked very hard over the last 2 years to, decrease our outflow rates by 550 basis points because we restructured our balance sheet in a particular way. Now, that could mean that our credit deposit ratio is slightly higher than some of the others. But we have done something very well on the, ensuring that there is enough liquidity which we have as a bank. And today we are one of the best in class in terms of outflows. So I think RBI recognizes that every bank has its own context, and I think they will react and look at the credit deposit ratio with that context in mind. We have an extremely smart regulator, very proactive regulator. I'm sure they're listening, and hopefully some of these things will converge at some point. But I do expect the advances growth to temper a little bit from here. They're not going to continue at the same pace. I don't think RBI will allow it.
But let me pick up on both those issues. On the credit deposit ratio, you said that the regulator is being watchful at this point in time and will act if necessary. But you're also hopeful that they will keep in mind the context of each individual bank. If that were not to be the case, I mean, what would somebody like you, for instance, need to do to ensure that the regulator is not forced to act?
Well, the math shows that if the regulator wants the credit deposit ratio at a certain level, and you can do it for every bank, what it means in terms of additional deposits they have to raise to get to a targeted deposit ratio, and then if they want to grow from there, what additional deposits they need. It's just pure maths. So I think if RBI was to move towards mandating a number for all the banks or a number for a bank and a different number for different banks, it would mean that everyone has to relook at their balance sheet and then act accordingly on the liabilities and the asset side. I think the regulator will, my view is, will never come out with a number. Right. I think they will guide us towards what they want. They will expect the board to look at some of these things and come up with a plan which will ensure that if things were to go in the wrong direction, automatically the mitigating mechanisms will take care of it and push either the asset growth down or increase the deposits you're collecting from the banking system.
So in light of what has already been said, and there isn't a mandate on a number just yet, but are you starting to approach things differently?
Well, we are looking at a balance sheet because obviously RBI is asking all the banks questions around how you're going to manage this going forward. I think a bank of our size, the kind of franchise we have, I think we can manage some of those variables much better in comparison to some of the other smaller institutions. So we are looking at all our options and seeing what we need to do. There might be some small changes on the increment, but otherwise we do believe that we can meet the expectations of RBI and meet the expectations of what our shareholders expect from us.